If you've ever wanted to try to make sourdough bread but always been a little intimidated by the process, well, I have some good news for you because I have perfected the simplest version you'll ever find. It is such an easy recipe and I'm so excited to share it with you. Hey everyone, it's Dina from simplyhomecook.com and today we are going to be making sourdough bread. Now, I know sourdough can be very intimidating and sometimes very complicated, but my version that I've tested for like over 6 months now is very simple and very approachable. Now, before anyone goes off telling me that this is not how you do it, you missed that technique, this technique, this is just my version. This is what my family loves, it works for us, and the loaves turned out amazing. But if you want a complicated one, by all means, there are so many different recipes you can try. Be my guest. But if you want a simple version, you've come to the right place. So the first thing you want to do is feed your starter. Now, if you don't know what a starter is, it's just a mixture of water and flour. You can make your own, which takes a while. It takes close to a week, if not more, from the start to finish before it's even ready to use, and you're not always guaranteed that it's going to turn out right. So I recommend just buying it. I've bought in a few different brands and so far my favorite one has been Ballerina Farms. I'll make sure to link to that down below. It has been the best starter. It makes amazing bread. Now before I show you how to feed the starter, I have to mention this. You will need a kitchen scale. This is an absolute must when making bread. You want very precise measurements and weights of the ingredients. So this recipe makes 1 loaf. So for 1 loaf, you're gonna need a total of 50 grams of starter. Just add it right into the cup or jar or bowl, whatever you're using. I just used a mason jar. And then you're gonna need 50 grams of filtered water. And I keep my starter in the fridge, so it's a little cold. I took it out a little earlier, but since it was a little cold, I made sure to warm up my water to like 105, 110. You don't wanna go over 110 degrees. So add that right in, mix it up, give it a good thorough mix, and then add 50 grams of bread flour. And then you want to mix that flour in very thoroughly. And before I cover it, I always make sure to scrape down the sides of the jar with a spatula just so it's nice and clean so you get a better idea of how much it's proofed. And before I cover it up, I always put a rubber band around the jar. It gives me a better idea, like it helps me gauge how much it's picked up. So once you've got your rubber band on there, you just want to cover it with some plastic wrap and then set it aside for about 4 to 8 hours until it doubles in size. Now, depending on how warm or cold it is in your home will really change up the amount of time it takes for it to rise. I like to speed it up a little bit by putting it in my oven and just setting it on the proof setting, like the bread proof setting. If you don't have that setting, you can always just turn the oven light on and it just creates a little bit of warmth in there. It just helps it rise a little bit faster. Once your sourdough starter has doubled in size, you will see that it's nice and active and it's got bubbles going on. That's a good sign that it's ready to use. Now you want to take out a large bowl, place it on your scale, zero it out, and then add 100 grams of that active starter right into the bowl. Now, if you're off by a few grams, that's totally fine, it's no big deal. Once you've got everything in there, you want to add 350 grams of warm filtered water right over that starter. Then you want to mix it up thoroughly right away. And I like to use this tool to mix it up. It does a really good job, but if you don't have it, a wooden spoon will work just fine. After the sourdough starter and water is all mixed up, you want to add 12 grams of salt. Then mix that thoroughly, and once it's all combined, you want to add 600 grams of bread flour. The dough will feel pretty wet at first, so I started mixing it with this tool, but after a while it's going to start combining together, and I switched over to this scraper because you really want to get the sides as best as possible, and it just makes it easier to mix at this point. All right, once you don't see any more patches of dry flour visible, you're done mixing. You want to cover the bowl with some plastic wrap or just a kitchen towel and then let it sit for about 30 minutes. The dough will look very rough and shaggy and that's totally fine. It will continue changing as we stretch it. Now, after the 30 minutes have gone by, this is where we start the stretching process. So to stretch the dough, you don't even need to take the dough out of the bowl. all you gotta do is just pull the top of the dough, pull it into the center, and then grab the left side, pull it into the center, then grab the bottom and the sides, pull it all towards the center. And that's it. You did your 4 little pulls and stretches, and your dough it's done stretching. Now you wanna cover it up again and let it rest for another 30 minutes. Now you wanna repeat this step for a total of 6 times. And you cannot skip this. I'm sorry, but you cannot skip this step. This is really important. As you stretch the dough, it builds the strength of the dough, the gluten develops, and you will just see after every 30 minutes, once you stretch it, the dough texture will start to change. And it's just really important because that strength of the dough, it'll hold up its shape, and as it bakes, it's gonna rise beautifully. You're gonna get those nice pockets of air, and it's gonna have irresistibly delicious crumb. You just can't skip this. It's very, very important. Now, after you've stretched the dough for the 6th time, you wanna give it another 30 minutes of resting. And this is where you can take the dough out of the bowl, just transfer it onto a clean work surface, and then you wanna pull it or stretch it into a rectangle. It doesn't matter how big the rectangle is, just, I don't know, like yay big. Once you've got the rectangle, you wanna fold it into thirds, and then you wanna roll it up so the seam is on the inside. Once it's all rolled up, just kind of form the dough into a nice, perfect little ball. At this point, your dough is ready to go into the proofing basket. And I use these baskets right here, and I'll make sure to link to them in the description below. But if you don't wanna buy a basket like this, or you don't have one, I have a great way to kind of replicate the basket. Just get any kind of bowl that's roughly the same size as this. And this is about 8 inches in diameter, and it's about 3 3/4 inch tall. Just like a medium to small size bowl. And all you gotta do is use a kitchen towel to line the bottom of it. And I recommend that the towel has kind of like some sort of a raised pattern. I don't know why, but it does a better job of keeping the dough from sticking. I've tried a more like flat kind of towel and it stuck more. So if you have a raised towel, that works a lot better. Now, before you put the dough into the bread basket, you need to dust it with some semolina flour and rice flour. And I used a tablespoon of each. I know a lot of people are probably thinking like, why can't you just put bread flour in here or any kind of flour? It does not work the same. I've tried it and it's just not the same. It's still stuck. Yeah, I've had my dough stick in here and it really sucked because I couldn't get it out and I had to like pull all of it out, and it was so ugly. It was the worst, it was the ugliest loaf ever. I was really upset. So sorry, but bread flour will not work here. I highly recommend the semolina and the rice flour. It works wonders. All right, once your bread basket is thoroughly dusted, you wanna gently transfer your dough into the bowl, and then you wanna dust a little bit extra semolina and rice flour on top, just because when you cover it, you don't want anything to stick to it, especially if you use the towel method. You definitely wanna dust the sides and the top pretty well, just so nothing sticks. I used, my bread basket came with this little like hat, so it didn't really stick, but I still do it just in case. You never know. All right, once you've got your bread covered and it's in the basket, you wanna transfer it into the fridge for about 8 hours, or I always do overnight. I find that the easiest way. Just do it overnight. Forget about it, don't have to worry about it until the morning. Now, in the morning, take your bread out about 3 hours before you plan to bake it, because it'll be pretty cold and you want it to come to a little bit of a room temperature. You don't want it super cold when it's going into the oven. So before you bake your bread, you wanna make sure to take your Dutch oven pot and the lid, put it into your cold oven, and then preheat it to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. You want the Dutch oven to be very hot before you put the bread in. So while the oven is preheating, you want to get a sheet of parchment paper, place it on your work surface, and then carefully transfer the dough, just flip it over onto the parchment paper, preferably the center of the parchment paper, and then remove the basket, and this is where you want to create the slits. You can do a cute little design. I just kept it simple and just did like a cross pattern. The point of this is to control where the air expands, because if you don't put any slits, it's just gonna like expand on the side or some weird way, and it's just gonna look ugly. So do the slits. If you wanna get fancy, you can do lots of cute designs, but I kept it simple. All right, once the oven has preheated and it's ready to go, you want to use an oven mitt to carefully open up the lid and then gently transfer the dough into the pot by gripping the sides of the parchment paper. Then place the lid on, and then you want to bake it still at 450 degrees Fahrenheit for about 30 minutes. After the 30 minutes have passed by, carefully take off the lid and bake for another 15 to 20 minutes. I've had times that it takes 15, it depends on your oven. If you like a little more brown, leave it for 20. And by that time, your bread should be done. It's gonna have that beautiful crust, and the crumb is just so soft and just, oh, it is amazing. It is so good. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video, and if you did, please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel so you guys get notified every time I come out with a new recipe. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.